everybody. I'm Danielle from Southstar, and we've teamed up with the incredible Joan Westenberg to host our conversations. Today we have Peta Ellis. Peta is the co-founder of Tribe Global, which is an incredible company running a range of programs like Peak Persona, which I'm sure Peta will talk to you about today, that are really aimed towards developing ourselves as humans. Without further ado, I will kick it off to our guests for today to have a great chat.
Okay, everyone, before we start, I like to start by acknowledging the Aboriginal elders of the land, past and present. I am in the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation here in Sydney, and I just want to acknowledge this is Aboriginal land, always has been, always will be. Wherever you are, I think it's really important that we think about that, especially this year, and looking back on how much things have changed, looking back on how the bushfires have affected us all. It's important that we respect the culture that came before us. Before we jump into the questions, I want everyone to take a big, deep breath. Take a deep breath, have some water, relax, chill, and just we're going to spend some time together. It's going to be half an hour just talking, getting to know each other. And I want us to be here and present in this moment because everything is crazy. There are so many Zoom calls to be on, Slack messages to answer, but right now let's just focus. I am really excited to be here with Peta because, honey, you and I have been talking on Twitter for so long and we've never actually met, have we? Like in person, face to face.
We have not met face to face. But no, we
How
have.
Does this keep happening, you know?
Well, I mean, I'm predominantly in Brisbane. I did work a lot down in Sydney last year, but and then of course this year, well, no one's going anywhere. So we continue our relationship online pretty much.
That's it. I just feel like maybe in normal times, non-COVID times, we get so busy that we forget to set aside actual moments to share with people. And so we go head down in our work and we're racing to and from events and we never think, you know what, that person over there, we should organize a coffee. But now that we're all kind of in lockdown, we're finally doing that and it's kind of nice.
It is nice. Or making time, prioritizing it, I think is a big thing. And it's that human connection piece, which of course I'm extremely passionate about, which I'll talk a lot about today, but it's around prioritizing things that matter to us and why don't we actually put them in our calendar as a high priority like we do all of the other work tasks which tend to override our attention and workspace and work time.
Can I just jump in right there and ask you, what are your priorities? Like what matters to you on your work and your personal side? What's really important?
Number one, family. So definitely my personal family relationships. It is something that I have absolutely gotten out of misalignment over various times throughout my year or years, because it's so easy to get lost in chasing, doing, achieving, and then often when we realize it's out of alignment, it's usually a little bit too late or some things you've gotten out of balance. And my aim is to always work more in alignment to make sure I'm aware of those things before it gets out of balance, because even though I know all the things, this is like the thing, all of us, we know what we should be doing, but are we doing it? And even me who creates programs around this still gets it wrong sometimes, but absolutely family and connections, personal friends, relationships is the highest of all of my priorities, because basically at the end of the day, if we don't have those, what do we have? So
that's right.
That is my number one.
Now you mentioned balance here, just on a really, really personal, practical way. What do you do to achieve that balance? Do you have any hard and fast rules? I know for me, I turn off Slack messages at 6 o'clock every night. And if somebody needs to reach me, they can find me tomorrow, you know?
Yeah, I had it's an interesting one, especially with online. And I think anyone who's been in business for I've been doing this for the last 20 years. So I was around before social media. So I know what it's like to not have that distraction, which I think is quite advantageous. Whereas lots of younger people now have only existed in this space where we have social media 24/7. But there's absolutely times when this become an addiction, and I find it, I have the phone in my hand all the time, which I really don't like. And it's quite toxic. And we can have a warped perception of what reality is or what's needed or how much we're needed or how busy we are. So prioritizing, making sure that I'm present, connected, and having, if I've got people in front of me, I want to make sure that I am giving them all my attention, my awareness, and definitely my presence.
I love that. Yeah. Like, there's just nothing wrong with putting your phone down and looking someone in the eye and just having that conversation. Yeah, it makes such a difference.
It does. It makes all of the difference. It's everything. Because if you don't have that, it's difficult. Even just walking across the road, we just pick it up. It's in our hand. It's in our pocket. It's in our bags. And it's like, we don't really need to look at our phone when we're crossing the road or we're, commuting. You could just sit there and listen to music. So for me, if there's any transit times or commuting, music is my go-to. Or I'm just seeing if there's just making sure that there is something going in, whether it's podcast, something I'm listening to, music or audiobooks is definitely a way that I make sure that I'm making the most of that downtime.
Yeah. Jumping into a different question that I dread asking people because it's a sad one that nobody wants to really think about, but I'm going to do it anyway. Going into 2020, did you have any plans that were derailed by everything that's gone on, and how have you adjusted to that?
I'm so glad you asked that question because you know what, going into 2020, I had no plans. I had left a really full-on couple of years that I had at River City Labs, and I didn't actually have any plans when I left there, just that I knew that I needed to make some changes because my priorities had definitely gotten out of alignment of where I wanted to be. And so I was open to things changing and being different. I took a really awesome opportunity to work with QT, where I was working as an entrepreneur in residence to develop the entrepreneurship programs and develop some community initiatives and a bit of an ecosystem growth role, which was fantastic and a great in-between opportunity for me. And of course, to spend more time on my own businesses. So as far as big plans, no. And it was perfect opportunity for me to do what we do best, because a lot of people were looking at ways that they can connect with their teams better and how they can engage their remote teams and how they could bring the human element and the culture piece to distributed teams, which is, funnily enough, is exactly what we do through Tribe Global. And the human connection is everything. And that's what we're super passionate about, both with Peak Persona and Tribe Global. So it gave us an opportunity to double down on what we already know and then share a lot of that a lot more rapidly than we had planned to. So not a lot got derailed for me. So I've been very,
oh my gosh, you're lucky. Yeah.
Very
I was
fortunate.
supposed to be on a plane to Japan this morning. That was my biggest derailment of this year, but
yeah,
these things happen. You respond,
Yeah, you do. And the biggest, well, one thing that did get derailed, but it was one of those things where it was just, I had to look at the situation differently. So I was moving house. I had this house up for sale. I struggled to sell it because it was at the peak lockdown when even Brisbane got locked down. I couldn't have open houses. I had an amazing offer the week before we had lockdown. The person pulled out the day before. So we went through this really shitty process of having to do open houses virtually. And so that was a bit of a life setback, but we got through it and I had to move. Fun. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you've had a positive year anyway, which we love, and growth in Tribe Global and Peak Persona is fantastic. But I did just want to ask you for an elevator pitch. What is Tribe Global all about, and what is Peak Persona all about?
Well, Peak Persona, we work with individuals. So we share their best routines, habits, and strategies to optimize yourself, whether it be, and that's different for everybody. So how do we actually implement the things that allow you to do the best that you possibly can in whatever environment that you are operating in? And most of it is actually unpacking all the layers that we have put on top of ourselves and allowing you to just operate at your optimum or your peak. And Tribe Global does this for organizations. It allows organizations to be more human, connect with their people, and put human transformation before the organization and embed some key strategies and toolkits so that organizations can work with their people and embed a culture that they actually want to grow with.
Can we break open that theme of communicating inside organizations and communicating with each other? I feel like we have really changed the way we communicate this year because we've had to. Like we've had generations of people who might never have done a video call before being dragged, kicking and screaming into a space that they might not be super comfortable with. And we've had people trying to adjust to new ways of working and talking to each other. How do you think this has changed, and what do you think it's meant for folks?
I think it's been a complete leveler for everybody, for the entire industry, all industries. It is, I think it can only be a positive for everybody if we have to become more human and we had to see the messy bits. Leaders had to tell their entire organizations that they didn't know what they were doing next, and they had to be more real about that and be honest and transparent. Because the thing with what we've just gone through is nobody had the answers. And do you know what? In business, sometimes you don't have the answers. We don't actually know what's happening next. And all we need to do is say that is, I don't have the answers. We're going to work it out. And connecting. Often it's decisions are made or things are handed down and they've got certain channels and nobody has a voice. There is no central platform for people to put up new ideas or to connect or share how they're feeling. So everybody was feeling very displaced. There wasn't a lot of psychological safety going on. We didn't know if we had jobs or not, what industries were going to survive or who were going to thrive or crash. So there was a lot of unrest, a lot of change, which as humans, we're hardwired to like things to go the same way. And those who do embrace change, which are funnily enough entrepreneurs, because we throw ourselves in that situation on a daily basis. That's how we operate businesses. There's things moving rapidly all the time. So you tend to build up a resilience to change. Whereas other industries, other people in different roles maybe aren't as used to that rapid change and just haven't built up that resilience or the skill set to know how you personally react to when things are changing or things are different. So it's absolutely been a self-awareness journey on how do we all feel about this and what can we do about it. So I think the best thing that could have come out of it is communication channels might have been opened up within organizations. We might have seen some humanness or realness come out of some leaders where they have said, I'm not sure what's happening. We're going to work it out together, opposed to being held, information being withheld, or there hasn't been an inclusive environment to have allow people to have those conversations that really matter.
So just thinking about this one, what does the word tribe mean to you? Because, we're talking about communities, communication, these networks of folks trying to support each other. But is that what tribes mean to you?
Yeah, it's more of the connected with a central theme or common purpose. Because you can have a community or a group or of people or an organization, but unless you're centrally connected with that common goal, common purpose, with that openness, plus that trust, there's a level of trust within a tribe that means that there is communication to know what's happening. There is a level of trust to know that that there is leadership there with an openness and transparency that are all going towards a common purpose. But it's much more centralized leadership and definitely very inclusive and bringing people together, which is that common thread with connection that happens usually within a tribe. But it's just the nice knowing that someone's got your back, no matter where you are. So tribe, obviously the symbol being a circle, is definitely not the traditional form of leadership or the way that companies have been structured in the traditional sense.
So do you see tribes as being hierarchical, or is this a sense of real equality?
Much more of equality and power in the community. So bringing the organisation together as a whole with all the people, so that and a central opportunity for everyone to have a voice and to have an opinion, and for a safe place for that to be shared. But I think also a safe place to even share what you're feeling and communicate that in such a way that can be heard, because often there's places where you can put ideas forward or say something, but are you actually going to be heard is the next piece of that, because culture can definitely be framed a lot of the time as a nice fluffy word to have, but is it really embedded into every single part of that organization so that everybody from all parts of the business actually knows what is happening, who's who, and how the whole organization operates.
Do you have any examples of people who do that really well?
Oh gosh, yes, there's lots of different organizations that do it really well. There's lots that have gone, I love seeing companies that have gone through a transformation of, and it's not often big, and it's not a huge, big change. It's when you see a team come together, because we do a lot of personality profiling within a team, so that the entire organization knows not only who they are working with, but how they operate. How does that individual want to be communicated to? What personality type do they have? What language am I going to need to use to get the best out of this conversation? So, I mean, Joan, you and I, we could be in the same team, to have different roles. We could be saying the same thing, but it's just not gelling, and we could get frustrated because I could be a very the type of communication I need is a lot of details and information, and you're high level, like big vision, got all the ideas, talk really fast. But the thing is, we just can't connect because I need the spreadsheets with the timelines and the deadlines. And if you knew that about me, the way we would communicate and connect is completely different. And the way that I would communicate to you is probably different, knowing you just need the big picture sort of description of whatever it is that I'm saying. So when you see a whole team understand each other and see the transformation, it's like you've just given them the code, the source code to each other, so they know how to unlock their people within the organization, especially leaders. If they know the source code of their team and what language they would prefer to be spoken or given instruction to, or have something explained in, it completely transforms the communication strategy, the openness, absolutely, the awareness. Yeah. And you can just achieve so much more. So seeing an organization just getting really stuck when they're doing good things, they've embedded everything that would normally be what we call a really good, healthy culture, but they're missing the transparency on how to get the most out of their people. And then when they have that, all those layers remove and the decoding as such, the transformation is awesome. And you see people sort of step into their own. It's like, well, they own it. Like, yes, I am the detail person. This is what I need. And this is where my strength is what comes naturally to me. So like, give me something to work on in this area, which is amazing, because it's less about role. It's more around what comes naturally to you, and how can we harness that? How can we harness that in this organization? Because we need this over here and we have got a big gap. So when you map a whole team and you can go, we've got some gaps over here. So next time we hire someone, we're probably going to look for these sort of things. Forget what the skill set is, but we need this type of a person, and then we can adapt the skill set on top of that. But there are lots of companies that do this well. I give kudos to my brother. He's an amazing culture guru expert. He was head of culture at Vino Mofo, and now he's head of culture at Koala, and they do it astoundingly well, not only with their own internal people. When a company like that, they say they're not in the business of mattresses, they're in the business of delighting customers. And not only do they do that, but they do it with every single person in the business internally. So if you can't promote that you have a certain relationship or have a certain customer experience with all of your customers, if you aren't doing it with your people first, because your own people should be number one. And then from there, if you are living and breathing that culture and the way of communicating and dealing with people, it's going to flow out into your customer service, into your marketing, your messaging. It's just that it's what's going to happen. You live and breathe it all the time, which is where you really fully then embed what that messaging is within a company and an organization. And sometimes it's not the employee's fault or the team's fault. It's if they just don't know, or if they haven't felt it or experienced it themselves, what that feels like. It's very difficult for them to then go and sell it if they don't know it themselves. And look, there are only two examples that I know of intimately of what they do. There are a lot more, and let's face it, we are in the future of human to human business interactions. So the more we can do to, first of all, empower our people and love them hard and embrace them for who they are, and then set them free within the business with what skill sets come naturally to them, you can only on the back of that create awesome businesses interacting with amazing customers, because it's going to rub off. It's an energetic transfer. I know that's probably seeming a little bit airy-fairy, but it's true.
No, I think I agree with you. And I've always believed that what sets a startup apart is never the technology. It's the way they foster people, because, you know, these are human-powered companies, even if they're completely high-tech, and people are what matter the most. And I'm looking at the ecosystem right now. I think one of the things that scares me is just that, well, people have really suffered this year in 2020. People have suffered a lot. And I know that as innovators, we're going to be drawing on those people and drawing their experiences. And I think that concerns me a bit. Can I get like a temp check from you on the tech ecosystem and where things are at here, and how much below 2020 has been?
Yeah, the check on the ecosystem, I think we know, I mean, we probably both know that there are some companies that have been completely wiped out, and there's others who have absolutely thrived in this era, simply because they either had the right product market fit at the time. There are companies now more than ever. I know companies that would be thriving right now if they were still going, but they fizzled out probably a few years ago because, you know what, the market wasn't ready for them. And their selling to corporates was so difficult because their perception was it was risky, we don't need it yet. The world, we're not that far ahead yet to need whatever it is you're selling. Then we went through this massive leveler, which leveled so many different industries. And now more than ever, large organizations are looking to these solutions on how to get them future ready or future proof or fast forward their growth rapidly. And a lot of the time, that the way they can do that the fastest is to partner with or become customers of or acquire startups who are already doing this really, really well because they're small and agile and can. So I know that there's a lot of companies that have now who struggled to sell can sell much easier because more people are open to alternative ways of doing things, online business, online learning. There's so many that are thriving. But I do think that we had probably an oversupply of some things. And there was also the concept of innovation hubs, co-working spaces, accelerator programs, so much going on, events every night of the week. You could fill up your days and nights by going to things. And now we're not going to things, but we're building companies. So how much noise was there? Like there was a lot of noise. It's very impactful. I'm missing the personal interaction of events. But I do think we probably have filled up our weeks before with activity that may not have been leading to business growth, which maybe now we might be a bit more equalized and look at what we probably just were filling in the nights of the week or event spaces with activity. Whereas now we can focus on growing companies that are going to be having some serious impact. You're muted.
I always do that to myself. That's a fantastic answer. I'm really excited to see how that all develops because, yeah, I do reckon this is an opportunity. And I think that we could see the ecosystem grow so much more from here. And the last question I wanted to give you just before we dive into Q&A was, is there one thing that you can recommend that we all do after this call for the rest of the day to try to reach for that balance and try to reach for who we could be at our best?
Oh, that's such a big one.
I ask big questions.
I know you do. It's more around, you know what, it just comes down to what we think we should be doing, right? So a lot of us do things what we think we should be doing opposed to what we really, really want to be doing. And let's face it, we've had that much change and that much going on. What is the biggest risk of why if you because there's always something, right? Unless you're completely happy and content, this probably is not for you. But those people who are sitting on the fence or thinking like, maybe I could, maybe I should, just have a go. Like have a go at something. You will only learn by doing. This is what is frustrating is I see so much potential, so many amazing, very smart people, very capable people, but they just still hold back or are a bit fearful of what people think. And social media exacerbates this, of course. Is you learn the most from yourself on how you react and how you're a person. If you just do something, test yourself, get a bit scared, get a bit uncomfortable and see what your reaction's like. That's the fastest way to learn and about yourself and grow a little bit. You might stuff up. It could be a bit embarrassing. Who knows? It could be also amazing. So we always tend to think of the negative of what may happen, opposed to, it could also be like this, but we don't know yet. And have a go.
I think that's awesome. Just fucking do it, I guess.
Something,
is what it
anything.
comes down to.
I don't care what it is. Could be a business, could be a personal goal, could be a hike up mountain. It doesn't even matter what that thing is. Just commit to something, tell someone about it, and take little tiny baby steps. Have some micro goals to working towards a big goal.
I love that. I would high five you right now if I was with you, but I'm not. Look, we'll jump into the Q&A now. There's a whole bunch of questions here, and some of them are really great. The first one that I would love to just put out there is from Neha. I'd love to know, how do you create balance between going above and beyond in serving your customers and also balancing your personal priorities like children and family?
Oh, big question. You know what? Family first. I think that's my mission mantra. Family first, and not at the detriment of customers, but you can actually have both. But there's a communication breakdown somewhere. So I think understand what your family's needs are. How are you going to be physically needed and emotionally needed and time frame wise, and structure it, carve out time for when your customers might need you as well, because you don't want to be just sort of half-assing both. You don't want to be at home messaging customers and then sort of physically there, but mentally somewhere else. The same thing online with the customers, but then mentally with the family. Like try and see if you can separate up some time where you can be 100% in with family, commitments, partner, relationship, kids, whatever is in your life, and then work time, customer time, and be very clear of when you're playing those two things, so people know I'm at work now or I'm at home now, and have allocated times when your customers can reach out to you. It's difficult when you're online and you're in forums and customers can hit you 24/7 now on any channel. But you're allowed to, as a business owner, set boundaries and say, you know what, we'll answer questions between this time and this time. Because if you don't set them now, it becomes harder later once things grow.
That's it, and you are the czar of your boundaries. Nobody else is, 100%.
Exactly, yep.
Okay, a question from Chris. How beneficial is it to have experienced and mature people who know the art of planning and completion to help guide the inexperienced?
I love having experienced people, all different age groups within businesses. I think there is definitely an art and a wisdom and maturity that older people can bring to businesses. If you're a new young company, you just have a different mindset. Younger people operate on different time frames, time zones. And there's just, I know I'm 42 years old. I know that what I would have thought if you told me when I was 22, I knew everything. And I would have arrogantly told you that I absolutely know everything. And now I know with just the years of living, that I know a whole lot more than my 22-year-old self. So I would embrace and encourage age diversity within companies just because of life experience. Plus then if they've got business experience on the top of that, there's just a different level that everybody can learn from each other. And if there's an opportunity to mix that up, I would absolutely do that.
I've always thought that I would love to have the courage and the energy I had at 21 with the knowledge and experience I have at 31. That would be the dream. Gosh. Okay, so my next question from Georgia. How important is storytelling in connecting with people? I love this question.
It is number one. That is what I'm most passionate about. So I had a marketing PR agency, and the reason I did that is because I just want to tell people stories. I don't really love publicizing or selling, but I just believe everybody's got amazing stories and they need to be told. So in business, I will buy off you because I like your story or where you're coming from, and other customers are the same. We are now probably the most conscious consumers we have ever been. We're breeding generations of new people who we're training and teaching them to go further, go deeper, find out who's behind that company, what do they stand for, what's the impact. So tell the stories should be the number one marketing strategy, is sharing who you are, why you do it, what you stand for, what the purpose behind things are. I think the era of just transactional relationships is very much dead. We bring it back to the human. We can be massive and still be human, and the only way to do that is to bring the stories to the forefront.
Okay, a question here from Craig. What advice, top tips would you recommend for making friends with the unknown, both in personal and in business parts of your life?
With the unknown, well, that's it's just like we've said before, setting those micro challenges or breaking any of those tasks down into little micro steps so it doesn't seem so big. And if it means stepping into the unknown, which is usually a fear, there's fear there, is just taking small baby steps towards that. Because if you break it down, it doesn't seem so big. After a while, you just start, make small little incremental changes or small incremental challenges to yourself, micro challenges, does get you closer to the unknown, if I'm picking up the right vibe of that question. But obviously doing things that we don't know is stepping out of our comfort zone and just seeing how you personally react to that and knowing what comes up, and you get better at dealing with it over time. And then if you do it enough, you tend to end up seeking out the experience just so you can grow a little bit more, opposed to shying away from it.
That's one of those questions I would have answered differently at 21, because I probably would have said, do a line of coke and just take a leap. But thankfully, age and experience, am I right? We learn. All right, so another question here from somebody who has achieved a lot of feedback and consistent sales in their startup, Zach, now wants to grow that to the next level by engaging influencers. How can Zach best engage them, and what kind of metrics should he be looking for?
Oh,
this
Zach,
is one we could probably break down together as like comms brains here.
Yes, look, the art of approaching influencers or engaging influencers, there are so many different channels, right? There's platforms to do that. You can have personal relationships to do that. I always bring it back to the why, in terms of, you can ask somebody to do that, or you can pay them to do that, but what is the truth? Like, do you really want just the endorsement, or do you want genuine endorsement? And I would I'm always a big believer of how can you work around that to still have a greater impact. But of course, metrics are going to be basically, if you're spending money on something, how much more sales are you going to need to make that back? And is it going to be worth it? So that's a bit of a, money in, money out, basic sort of a question. But if you're looking for impact or influence to unlock a whole area of customers, which will lead to other things, I think it's understanding really what you are wanting out of that relationship. What do you think, Joan?
Yeah, I think it's about making sure that you're never transactional with these folks. I mean, you just don't know the connection that somebody has with their audience, and it might look like they have great numbers, but does the audience really care about them? If you can find somebody whose audience is so invested in who they are, and there's that level of authenticity, that's just going to mean so much more. And if you can approach them with that same kind of mindset, you will have a level of cut through that you just can't buy.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, I think we have time for one more question, and we're going to finish off with another one of these big ones, but you can't blame me for this one. It's a Q&A. What did you learn unexpectedly about yourself this year?
Oh my gosh, I've got 1,000 things that I learnt about myself. I don't love change. I don't love it. And I love routine, which I've always known, so I don't know why I was so surprised. But I've learned to adapt and come up with ways that I react better to situations. But look, I find things that I'm surprised that I do or don't like about myself on a daily basis. But I hate not knowing something, and I hate feeling out of my depth, and I hate feeling like I don't know enough. So I'm continuously looking for ways where I just feel like I'm not cutting the mustard, or I need to learn more. So upskilling for me is huge, to continuously keep educating myself. I find even not being involved with startups on a daily basis like I was for 7 years straight, I feel even in that short 12 months that I've stepped out of that circle, I feel like I haven't got my finger on the pulse on what everyone's doing, and I hate that. And I was very surprised that I'd feel very disconnected that quickly. So that was one of the biggest things. So now I'm just looking at different ways that I can still get involved in such a way that I feel like I know who's doing what and what's going on.
That's awesome. The only thing I've learned about myself this year is that I like the combination of peanut butter and honey, but that's much less.
I learned that when I was about 6. I think that was a favorite.
I'm way behind the curve.
Yeah.
Well, that is all we have today, and it's just been really wonderful talking to you. I've really enjoyed this. This is like my Tuesday treat, getting to interview awesome people like you. I'm really excited about it. Yeah.
And they were good questions. So thanks everybody for those questions.
Absolutely, yeah.
Value out of the answers.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I'm jumping here. Switch the view. Hey, a bit of a question that I'm interested in, just quickly before you go. I'm interested in knowing, obviously, being such a long time ecosystem supporter, and what you just said there about, you know, as you started to focus on Tribe Global, feeling a bit like, oh, you don't have a pulse on the ecosystem. I'm interested to know how your those beyond 7 years of experience within the startup ecosystem, supporting other people, how that led to your focus on Tribe Global and Peak Persona, and realizing the importance of looking after your mental health and looking after the people that are often supporting others. How did that journey evolve? Sorry, just a bit of a...
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question. And it's funny because some people in the ecosystem are either people in between projects, it's an interesting role to play when you're involved in the ecosystem. It's often thought of, are you just like a failed entrepreneur filling in time, or are you just got a domain expertise where you're willing to share some knowledge, or are you just buying time until you find your next venture? But the thing, I love the journey. I love working with people on the journey because I'm a people person. It's all about the human journey for me, not so much about the business. So because I know that the key thing to those companies succeeding is those individuals getting their own personal formula right. And what I noticed over time of working with lots of different companies, and even though mentoring or guidance or programs or education can be framed as progressing a business, I've been working with humans that whole time. So they're people, and seeing the journey, their reactions, and the difference between the ones who just forge ahead and the ones that get stuck, do the loops, or fizzle out for whatever reason. So I know that there is some key things that sometimes we just don't know yet. We haven't been taught it. We weren't brought up a certain way. We've never been shown some things that could help you as an individual to unlock what those personal blockers are, or to surround yourself with the right people, which we just call your enablers. Who do you have around you who enable you to do more or do better or unlock something? So it was sort of a natural progression for me, because I've been doing this forever. It was just called something else. Whereas now I'm doing it on a full-time basis, called exactly what it is. And so the Peak Persona programs it's just like a no-brainer for me for founders, business people, leaders to do that. I don't think you can lead teams, companies, people unless you know yourself well enough. And really it's just an unpacking of that. Once you got that rock solid, like the sky's the limit, really, because you know yourself that well, you can unlock everybody else and work with them to empower them. So for me, it was the progression of, it was just so obvious, the patterns of so many people going through the process, and it was hyper accentuated in entrepreneurship because the rapid loops of learning are so fast. People go through like 5 lifetimes in sort of 1 year in entrepreneurship, because the pressure and the push and the pull of everything that's required of you is so intense. You get to see this compressed version of people's growth journeys. So yeah, seemed like a natural progression for me to do that all the time. And it's still a work in progress. It's its 3rd year now at Peak Persona. So we now have those programs. We've done lots of different versions to see what resonates with people the most, and what's get the best results, and what even the delivery style is. It's never been something that we're more focused on the results, not the actual functionality of the tech and the delivery, which we have a long way to go to improve that part, but the impact is huge.
Yeah, and do you want to give a quick plug? I've put your website there in the chat function, but for anyone leaving this call today, what is something that they can sign up for today if they feel like it? What's your kind of
the easiest way to get involved, or probably the program to start with, which is really light touch, it's 14 days, called Baseline, which is just establishing your baseline to know. And it's for people, there's usually three types. There's someone who knows what it's like to be nailing it, doing really well, feeling content in their life and in their work life and their friends and family before, and then now feeling a bit like out of kilter, that they've lost their mojo or fallen off the wagon a little bit with routines. Then there's people who know they should be probably doing something, don't know what it looks like, can see other people kind of like nailing it, but not sure what they're doing that's different to them. And then there's others who, like, we often find that high performing people, athletes in particular, know what it's like to be coached. And so when they're in life, with no coach driving them, they're sort of like, well, how do we find our own routine and structure when no one's sort of telling me what to do? There's another type there as well, who need to then establish their own routine structure to understand how they best operate. So there's quite a lot in it, but it's a great way to start. It's literally a thing or a focus of the day for 14 days. And you would think it's super simple, which it is, but it unlocks a lot about yourself, which I think is really empowering.
So for those of you who are interested in learning more, the website is in the chat function. I've put a note in here as well. You can also follow Peta and Joan on Twitter. Their links are in there. Have a fantastic day, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. Bye.